Have you ever watched a powerful figure, someone who seems untouchable, crumble before your eyes? A man who built an empire from nothing, who defied every expectation, suddenly losing control in a public spectacle that leaves everyone speechless. Imagine the scene. Elon Musk, the titan of technology and innovation, the man who reshaped industries, storms off a live broadcast after a shocking accusation. But this isn't just any accusation. This one cuts to the core of everything he's built, everything he's fought for. In an age where social media can make or break reputations in a heartbeat, this moment is more than just a slip-up. It's a high-stakes drama that everyone's been waiting for, and it's happening right before your eyes. Why would Musk, the genius behind Tesla and SpaceX, let a single accusation shatter his cool? Now ask yourself, what if this wasn't just a disagreement? What if, in that moment, something much bigger was unfolding? What if, just maybe, there's more to this than a simple clash of personalities or a media stunt? This is a story that will shock you, but more importantly, it will make you think. What does it mean to stand on the edge of everything you've built, knowing that one wrong move could send it all crashing down? And what if the very people you trust most, those who should have your back, are the ones who might just bring you down? The stage is set. The accusation has been made, and Elon Musk, of all people, is walking away from it all. But why? What's really at stake here? Stick around, because the twist will leave you reeling. Elon Musk is no stranger to controversy. His name is synonymous with innovation, ambition, and at times unpredictability. But what if the very persona that made him a household name, his larger-than-life, sometimes brash personality, was now being used against him? What if the public was starting to question his motives, his actions, and the very principles behind his empire? This story begins not with a scandal or a sudden accusation, but with something much more insidious, a growing sense of betrayal from those closest to him. It all started months before that infamous moment on the talk show. Musk, for all his genius and forward-thinking ideas, was never someone to sit quietly and let the world around him dictate the rules. He had always been unapologetic, a figure who, despite being a billionaire, often found himself at odds with the status quo, be it in business, politics, or social issues. He spoke his mind, challenged authority, and took on challenges that others would never dream of. But there's a price for that kind of audacity. As the head of Tesla and SpaceX, Musk had built an empire. His companies were revered for their cutting-edge technology and visionary thinking. Yet beneath the glitz and glamour of his success, there were cracks. And those cracks weren't just about business failures or personal scandals. They were about the way Musk had begun to isolate himself from the very system he had once been a part of. The world had embraced him for his boldness. But as time wore on, Musk's defiance of social norms and corporate expectations began to feel like a threat to those around him. The media, once his ally, turned on him. Investors, who once cheered his every move, grew restless as his unorthodox style led to fluctuating stock prices. Even those in his inner circle began to question his judgment. His disregard for political correctness, his confrontational style, and his readiness to speak out on any platform made him a magnet for criticism. Then came the talk show appearance that would change everything. The host, known for his liberal views and cutting critiques of the rich and powerful, had long held Musk in disdain. He saw Musk as a symbol of everything wrong with the corporate world, greedy, self-serving, and out of touch with the struggles of the everyday person. The host had spent years portraying Musk as the villain in a world that needed saving. But when the opportunity to have Musk on his show arose, it seemed like the perfect chance for a face-off that would deliver ratings and political points. From the moment Musk stepped onto the stage, it was clear that this wasn't going to be a friendly interview. The host launched into his accusations with fervor, challenging Musk's environmental record, his corporate practices, and his public statements on social justice. But what began as a typical back and forth soon escalated into something far more explosive. The host accused Musk of undermining public trust and cashing in on the suffering of others, insinuating that his public persona was a carefully crafted illusion. designed to distract from his true intentions. The accusation was sharp, calculated, and hurtful, especially coming from someone Musk had always considered a part of his larger social circle. In that moment, the audience saw something they hadn't expected. Musk's typical bravado faltered. For the first time, he looked rattled, as though the host's words had pierced through the armor he had carefully constructed over the years. The injustice wasn't just in the words the host spoke, it was in the way they were delivered, as if Musk's every effort to change the world was being dismissed as nothing more than a self-serving ploy. As the interview continued, Musk's discomfort grew. The host relentlessly pushed, challenging Musk's motives, calling out his past business decisions, and painting him as a hypocrite. The audience, initially supportive of Musk's presence on the show, shifted. The seeds of doubt were planted. It wasn't just the media or the public that had begun to turn on him. It was his own reflection of who he had become. Musk had spent his life pushing against the system, only to realize that the very system he had defied was now coming for him. The corporate world, the media, and even his closest allies were starting to see him as a threat, an out-of-touch billionaire who had lost sight of the very ideals that had once fueled his success. But here's where the real injustice lies. Musk's entire life had been a quest for innovation, a mission to change the world, to challenge the old ways of thinking, and to push humanity toward a brighter future. Yet, in this moment, he was being reduced to a villain, a puppet of the very system he had worked so hard to dismantle. The host's accusations weren't just personal. They were an attack on everything Musk represented. The audience didn't see the tireless work that had gone into building Tesla, SpaceX, and other ventures. They didn't see the countless hours, the risk-taking, the sacrifices made for a cause that Musk believed in. Instead, they saw a man who had become a symbol of everything they despised, an out-of-touch elite who was now being held accountable. The reality was this: Musk had always fought to create a better world, but now he was being painted as part of the problem. The unfairness of it all was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just about Musk. It was about the way society had chosen to view success. It wasn't enough to be a billionaire who changed the world. You also had to be a perfect saint in the eyes of those who demanded moral purity. And in that moment, Musk realized that no matter how much good he had done, it would never be enough. The layers of injustice were clear. The betrayal from those who had once hailed him as a visionary, the public's fickle nature in turning on, those who dared to rise above, and the media's relentless pursuit of scandal over substance. These forces were coming together in a way that Musk had never anticipated. But the most painful part, the betrayal didn't come from his competitors or rivals, it came from within. Those who had benefited from his success, those who had once shared his vision, were now turning their backs on him. And the host? He was just the loudspeaker, amplifying the message of those who wanted to tear Musk down. In a world that thrived on chaos and spectacle, the injustice was clear. Musk, the man who had built empires, was now being torn apart by the very forces he had fought to change. Musk had never imagined a moment like this, never thought that his own reputation, the very empire he had spent decades building, could be so easily dismantled in front of millions. As the talk show host's words continued to echo in his mind, Musk found himself sitting alone in the back room of the studio, the silence around him suffocating. The chaos of the live broadcast, the harsh glare of the cameras, had all faded away, leaving only the bitter sting of public humiliation. The accusations weren't new. Musk had been called arrogant, reckless, and even manipulative many times before. But this time felt different. This time, the attack wasn't just on his actions, it was on his very character. He was being painted as a villain, a puppet master, controlling a world he no longer cared to understand. And it hit him harder than he expected. He had always prided himself on his resilience. The man who conquered the electric car industry, who launched rockets into space, who turned science fiction into reality, he had always believed he could take on anything. But now, for the first time in years, He felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Doubt. As he sat there, his mind replaying every word, every subtle gesture, he couldn't help but wonder, was it all worth it? All the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the relentless drive to change the world. Was it worth it if this is how it ended? Musk had fought for progress, fought for what he believed was the future of humanity. Yet now, he was seen as nothing more than another billionaire in the eyes of the world, a symbol of greed and excess. The very vision that had once inspired millions now seemed like a cruel joke. The realization hit hard. For the first time, he wasn't sure if he could win this one. The media was already running wild with their narrative. The critics were feeding off the drama, turning his every move into a spectacle. And the public? They were fickle, always ready to turn on their idols the moment the shine wore off. Musk had become the target of a well-orchestrated attack. But this wasn't just any attack. It was personal. The host, once an ally in Musk's complex world, had now positioned himself as a direct threat. The betrayal stung deeper than anything else. The turning point, however, didn't come in the studio. It didn't come in the heat of the moment, surrounded by cameras and microphones. No, the turning point came in the quiet of the dressing room, when Musk was finally alone with his thoughts. It wasn't the world outside that mattered in that moment. It was what was inside him that began to shift. He thought back to his earliest days in Silicon Valley, when his dreams seemed impossible, when the world was laughing at the very idea of electric cars and reusable rockets. He remembered the countless times people had told him it couldn't be done, that he would fail, just like everyone else. But he hadn't. He had proved them wrong, time and time again. So why now was he letting one attack, one betrayal, bring him to the edge? The answer came to him like a thunderbolt. It wasn't the attack itself that was the problem. It was how he had let it affect him. For too long, he had lived in the shadow of public opinion, thinking that validation from the files world was the key to success. But the truth was, he had never needed anyone's approval to succeed. His achievements, the very things that had made him who he was, were all rooted in one simple principle: vision. He didn't need to be liked. He didn't need to fit the mold. He just needed to keep moving forward. It was in this moment of clarity that the decision was made. Musk wasn't going to let the host, the media, or the public define him. He wasn't going to sit back and let them rewrite the narrative. He had fought too hard to be silenced now, but the question lingered. What would he do next? The tension in the air was palpable. The audience, who had once been captivated by his every move, was now waiting for him to react. Would he apologize? Would he retreat into silence and try to mend his image? Or would he face the world head-on, with the same audacity that had gotten him this far? Musk's answer was clear. He wouldn't run. He wouldn't back down. He would fight on his terms. With newfound resolve, he stood up from the chair, straightened his suit, and walked toward the door. The world outside may have thought he was beaten, but inside something had changed. The feeling of being cornered, the sense of failure. It had all melted away, replaced with a fire that he hadn't felt in years. Musk wasn't done yet. The world had just underestimated him for the last time. In the midst of the swirling uncertainty, he made a choice. It was a choice that would shift the power balance in ways no one expected. He wasn't going to retreat into the shadows and let the world judge him. He was going to show them all who Elon Musk really was, the man who could change the world, again. But there was a deeper truth that Musk finally understood. He wasn't fighting for his reputation anymore. He wasn't fighting to restore his image in the eyes of the media or the critics. He was fighting for something far more important: his legacy. The world may have seen him as a villain, a failure, or an out-of-touch billionaire. But the truth was, he was something far more dangerous. A visionary who wasn't afraid to break the rules to change the game. And in that moment, as he walked out the door, Musk knew that the game was just beginning. The weeks following Musk's public clash with the host were a whirlwind. The media, which had initially savoured the spectacle of his departure, soon grew restless. The ratings, though high, began to drop. People had grown tired of the same narrative. Musk, the misunderstood genius, versus the world. But Musk had already seen something others hadn't. It wasn't just about the drama. It was about how quickly the world had turned on him. There was something deeply wrong with the way society consumed its heroes and villains. One moment, they were worshipping you. The next, they were ready to tear you apart. What Musk realized, as the days passed in the echo of his own silence, was that this was no longer a fight for survival. This was a battle for something more profound: control. The host had won the first round, sure. He had shaken Musk's confidence. He had made the world question Musk's motives. But there was one thing the host didn't know. One thing no one knew. That would soon turn everything on its head. Musk had spent years working on something in the shadows, a project that wasn't about electric cars or space travel. It wasn't even about the colossal ambitions he had built his empire on. No, this project was personal. And the moment he walked off that stage, he knew it was time to bring it into the light. It started with a single tweet, seemingly innocuous, a throwaway line in a world where Musk's social media presence was considered legendary. But this tweet was different. It wasn't a jab at the host. It wasn't an attack on the media. It was a subtle message to the world, a signal that something was about to change. The tweet read, "The truth will always find its way to the surface. It just needs time." It was vague, mysterious even, but it wasn't meant to reveal anything. It was meant to stir curiosity, to plant the seed of doubt in the minds of those who had doubted him. Within hours, the media exploded with speculation. What was Musk referring to? Was there a secret he was hiding? Was this the start of a new chapter in the saga of his public life? Musk knew exactly what he was doing. He had never been afraid of controversy. He thrived in it, but this time the stakes were higher. The host had launched a campaign against him, but Musk was prepared to launch something even bigger, a revelation that would flip the entire narrative on its head. The next morning, as the world anxiously awaited his next move, Musk released a video, a short, cryptic message. His face, stern but calm, appeared on the screen. He didn't need to say much. He didn't need to explain. "What you've seen over the last few weeks is just the surface," he began. "What the world doesn't know is that I've been working on something that will change everything, for everyone. The truth isn't what you've been told. It's something far deeper." The video cut out abruptly, leaving the audience in stunned silence. No one knew what he meant. No one understood what was coming. But they all knew one thing. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As the media scrambled to analyze the message, the host, who had once been so confident in his position as Musk's adversary, began to feel the first tremors of doubt. The public, who had turned on Musk so swiftly, started questioning the legitimacy of the accusations. Was the host really the voice of truth, or was he just another part of the machine that had built its reputation by tearing people down? The shift was palpable. The narrative that had been so neatly constructed around Musk's failure started to fracture. People who had once sided with the host began to look more closely at the details. They began to see the cracks in the story. The host had painted Musk as a villain, but no one had asked the crucial question. Why was he doing this? That question began to haunt the host. As the media buzzed with speculation, a shocking revelation came to light, one that Musk had been quietly working on behind the scenes for months. It started with a simple leak, a piece of internal correspondence from the host's production company. The leak revealed that the host had been in negotiations with several of Musk's competitors, trying to secure interviews and build alliances that would paint Musk in a negative light. The host had been paid, not by the truth, but by those who stood to gain from Musk's downfall. The revelation was enough to send shockwaves through the media. The host's credibility, which had once been ironclad, crumbled in an instant. The narrative shifted again, and now Musk wasn't the villain. He was the victim of a coordinated smear campaign. The public began to rally behind him. The tides had turned. But this wasn't just a reversal of fortunes. It was a lesson in power, in the way narratives are controlled, and in the hidden forces that shape our perception of reality. Musk had spent years building his empire on innovation and risk, but now he was using something else to fight back. Knowledge. Knowledge of the system that had tried to destroy him. Knowledge of the forces working behind the scenes and, most importantly, the knowledge that the truth, no matter how long it took, would always come to light. As the host faced increasing pressure from the media and the public, Musk's strength became undeniable. His quiet, calculated move had not only shattered the antagonist's hold on the narrative, but it had also revealed the depths of Musk's own power. He wasn't just a businessman, he was a strategist, a master of the game, and now the world saw it. The emotional stakes were higher than ever. The world had doubted Musk, had mocked him, had written him off. But now, as the revelation unfolded, people began to see the truth. They saw the strength in Musk's response, his refusal to back down, and his ability to turn the tables when the world thought he was finished. And what was the host left with? The truth that he had tried to bury, the secrets that were now out in the open, and a career that had been irrevocably damaged by his own pursuit of power. In that moment, it wasn't just the host who had lost control. It was the very system that had once propped him up. The tables had turned. Musk had become the ultimate victor in a game he had never intended to play. It had been weeks since the world had watched Musk's world shatter live on television, and yet, in the aftermath of all the chaos and drama, a strange calm had settled over him. The media frenzy, which had once sought to destroy him, now felt like a distant memory. Musk, the man who had once been a hero and villain in the eyes of the public, had become something even more powerful, a symbol of resilience, of knowledge, and of redemption. The battle was over. The tables had turned, but what mattered most was how Musk emerged, not just unscathed, but victorious. The host, the media, and the public had all played their parts in creating the narrative that had nearly brought him down, but they had underestimated him. They had underestimated the depth of his strength, the quiet power he wielded, and most importantly, the truth that was on his side. And in the end, it wasn't just the host who would suffer the consequences of their actions. It was a much larger system, a system that had long been broken and corrupt. As the full extent of the host's deception and manipulation came to light, the public turned on him in a way no one could have predicted. The very platform that had once elevated him to fame now became his undoing. The alliances he had tried to forge with Musk's competitors were exposed for all to see. His credibility, once considered ironclad, crumbled before the eyes of the world. The very people who had once hailed him as a voice of truth now realized they had been manipulated by a man who had used his influence for personal gain. In a matter of days, the host's career was effectively destroyed. The media, quick to abandon any sinking ship, turned their focus away from Musk's alleged missteps and turned toward the scandal of the host's corruption. Advertisers pulled out, networks cancelled his show. His own colleagues, who had once stood by him, distanced themselves. From the fallout, the host had lost everything. His empire of influence, built on deceit, came crashing down in an instant. But Musk didn't need to do a thing. He didn't need revenge. He didn't need to gloat. The justice had already been served, and it was the sweetest kind of victory. One that didn't involve retribution, but rather the triumph of truth over lies. While the host's downfall played out in the media, Musk remained largely silent, a stark contrast to the frenetic energy that had surrounded him before. He focused on his work, on his vision, and on the projects that mattered most. His companies, which had once been the subject of endless media speculation, were now thriving again. Investors, who had once hesitated, began to pour money into his ventures again, seeing Musk not just as a tech mogul, but as a man who could weather any storm. But the most important thing Musk gained in the aftermath was something far greater than wealth or power. He regained his dignity. The attacks on his character had not only been false, they had been a misguided attempt to tear him down. In the end, it wasn't his accomplishments or his wealth that mattered most. It was the integrity with which he carried himself through the storm. And as for the world, it had learned a valuable lesson. The people who had once turned on Musk, who had bought into the narrative of his failure, began to realize that they had been complicit in a system that thrived on tearing people down. They had allowed themselves to be swayed by the whims of the media, by the noise of the world around them, without ever questioning the deeper motives at play. Musk's journey had shown them that the truth was not always as it seemed. That power could be wielded not just in public moments, but in the quiet resilience of knowing who you are and what you stand for. But the final, most poignant moment of justice came not in the public eye, but in the private spaces where Musk had spent years working tirelessly on his own vision. With every challenge he faced, with every setback, he had remained true to himself. The world had tried to break him, to paint him as something he was not, but he never faltered. The truth always came out in the end. And in this case, it was far more powerful than any media spectacle could ever be. When the host's downfall was complete and the dust began to settle, Musk sat quietly, reflecting on the journey. He didn't need to bask in the satisfaction of having won, because in a way the victory had already been claimed by something more important than public opinion or media ratings. It had been claimed by the truth, the one thing that no one could take from him. As Musk looked forward, he knew the world would always try to tear down those who dared to rise above. But he had learned something crucial, no matter how many times. The world tried to break you. The only thing that truly mattered was the strength you carried within. And that strength, when combined with unwavering truth, was more powerful than any external force. Justice had been served, not in a dramatic showdown, but in the quiet and steady march of integrity. Musk didn't need to say anything more. His actions had already spoken louder than words ever could.